Hey everybody, I'm Darkling765, and this video is a little bit different from the content I usually upload, so if you're new to my channel, please check out my other stuff before you consider subscribing. Anyway, I've recently gotten into playing Team Fortress 2. It's a fun game that really stands the test of time. I would argue it's one of the longest lasting and most consistently played and most beloved online multiplayer games of all time. One of the biggest keys to the success of the game is its focus on fan contributions. As much as the player base might try to deny it, Valve really cares about the fans of this game, as they should, given that if people aren't playing the game, then there's no reason to even have a game. One of the biggest contributions the fans of this game have made is the abundance of videos on the game, ranging from gameplay, tutorials, whatever category Lazy Purple's videos fall under.
Lazy, what kind of defense is this?
I am the defense!
And the topic of this video, fan animations. There is no shortage of Team Fortress 2 animations, videos that range from people telling their own stories with the settings and characters, or things that have nothing to do with Team Fortress and they just use the characters because Source Filmmaker is an accessible tool, sometimes for the sake of comedy and sometimes for the sake of art. All this brings me to a very specific video, a short film which, in its incredibly small runtime, contains commentary on society as a whole, the human condition in the modern world, love, loss, and existentialism, all wrapped up in a beautiful package. This short film, of course, is Heavy is Dead by Antoine Antoine. This short film is absolutely incredible, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it first so you understand exactly what I'm talking about. It'll be available in the iCard up in the corner and in the description. But if you're the kind of person who likes to watch the video essay on the movie before the movie itself, then there will be a link in the end slate as well. The film opens with the Heavy, who very clearly represents the every person, a normal person dancing around and singing one of the most beautiful, brilliant musical numbers ever composed by man. I'm afraid I can't play it due to copyright reasons, but if you've seen it, you may not realize why it's such a masterpiece. See, the song is so incredible because it's Heavy singing his own song. He's walking out into the world and he's saying, "This is me. This is who I am." This represents the freedom of expression as he walks out into the world. He's expressing himself creatively. He's showing the world who he really is on the inside through song. His line about "It is good day to be not dead" is simply a statement that it's a good day to be alive, a day where he can show his true colors. But unfortunately, tragedy strikes when Heavy is killed. It's not obvious right away who did it, but if you've seen the video before, you know who it was, so spoilers to those who haven't seen it. Of course, the killer was the engineer, in one of the most brilliant plot twists ever put to video. Engie here, of course, represents society as a whole. When he shoots and kills Heavy, it shows how society can kill the every person with expectations and stress. He's putting an end to Heavy's singing, and by extension, his freedom of expression. Engie then announces that Heavy is dead.
You are dead!
And Heavy repeats it,
I'm dead!
As though it's what society has trained him to do. I'll go back to the importance of the scene towards the end. There's some context that's given later that makes this powerful scene so much more amazing. It's following this that we meet the Spy, who shows immediate concern for Heavy's death. Spy represents not just one person, but all of Heavy's, and by extension the every person's, friends and family. Throughout the short film, he shows the most concern over Heavy's death, and in finding out who was responsible, yet is completely oblivious to the fact that the killer was society itself, and the expectations that it piles onto people. Engie, of course, doesn't accept the blame for the death, but notice how he doesn't try to push the blame away either. This is showing how society knows what it does, but is completely hidden from the views of the people looking for the source of the pain. It is after this that Heavy tries to explain exactly what has been the cause of his own death, but both society and the people closest to him silence him, showing how both society and even the people closest to you ignore you when you try to speak up against them. Following this enters the sniper, who at first is oblivious to the situation at hand. He asks, "Who's up for it?" and then cuts himself off when he sees that something is wrong. What exactly was it that Sniper was going to suggest before he cut himself off? It may not seem obvious to everybody, it even took me a couple rewatches to figure it out myself, but we can actually figure it out. You see, he was going to say, capitalism. Who's up for a capitalism? You see, Sniper represents capitalism, as well as businesses. How could I have possibly figured this out? Well, it's simple. When the Sniper is about to finish speaking, an orange symbol with a $sign appears on his body. It's very brief, so maybe you didn't see it, but it's right there. The dollar sign is the symbol for money, and therefore Sniper represents capitalism. Once he cuts himself off, he doesn't quite understand the situation at hand, but he does think that something is wrong. Notice how he doesn't ask what happened in the way a normal person would. You see, he says,
What the hell just happened?
Which is a pretty rude way to ask the question. This represents how capitalism is uncaring, only serving its own self-interest. When he discovers that Heavy is dead, he does show immediate concern, but there's an air of insincerity to his voice.
The Heavy is dead! Correct.
See, this is saying that businesses don't care about the deaths of people, but if they let it show that this is the case, businesses would lose business as people boycott them for being insensitive, so they play along with the emotional distress. The next scene shows Spy, who again represents the friends and family of the every person, trying to seek out and find justice for Heavy. Engie and Sniper then react by applauding Spy, even going so far as to say they are proud of his drive. However, this is where the film's brilliance comes to light. Sniper and Engie are applauding the efforts of Spy for completely different reasons, yet both are reasons of insincerity. Engie, who is responsible for the death of Heavy, is applauding because he wants to throw Spy off his trail and show the world that he truly cares about justice. Remember, he represents society as a whole, and society wants people to believe that it is pure. Sniper, on the other hand, is applauding to support Spy, not because he believes in Spy's cause, but rather because he wants to promote the good nature of his products and businesses as a whole, so he plays along to avoid the chances of a boycott. Following this, we are introduced to the soldier, who immediately states that Heavy is dead, which, of course, we already knew. Then he searches for clues and finds a gun. If you look very carefully, very closely at this gun that he finds, you'll notice that the gun is actually not the same gun as the gun that was used to kill Heavy. This is important as Soldier represents the American legal system, specifically the fact that the legal system is incredibly slow and inefficient, and ultimately not very useful. See, Soldier seems eager to help at first, going so far as to search for clues, and he actually does find evidence, that being the gun mentioned earlier. And through this gun, Soldier makes the conclusion that Heavy was, in fact, dead, an assertion that we, as well as the characters, were already aware of. This redundancy perfectly encapsulates how the legal system just goes in circles and only comes to conclusions that seem obvious to everyone else. Furthermore, remember how the gun that he found was actually a different gun to the one that had killed Heavy? That shows how the legal system can often come to the wrong conclusion and either accuse the innocent or worse, let free the guilty party, seen here as he ignores Engie's crime. Finally, Soldier gets run over by a car, which demonstrates how people are often likely to die of old age before the legal system is able to get anything done, as Soldier makes no progress apart from restating what was already known on the case before dying. And the thing that Soldier is being run over by is the medic's van, and out of the van jumps the medic. Medic seems frantic and in a rush to get things done, and attempts to kiss Heavy back to life. At first I thought this was one of the lower points in the video, like why would he do that, it clearly would never work. But I thought about it more, and I realized that this is actually a very deep commentary, and I'll get back to this when it becomes important. Once Medic's attempt to revive Heavy fails, Medic announces his failure to the world.
In my medical opinions, that Heavy is dead!
Naturally, the only conclusion that can be drawn from this is that Medic represents National Socialism. You may be asking, why? Well, it's very simple. Medic is German. Now you may be saying that Medic was always German even before the short film utilized him, but I think that it was actually just the genius of the creator to use an already established character and the traits we already know about the character to represent something artistically. So naturally, he's German, he's National Socialism. It's very obvious to me that this was the intended interpretation and the creator definitely intended it to be viewed this way. Next, Sniper asks Medic what happened, and this is where we receive one of the greatest realizations of dramatic irony ever put to film. Medic reveals,
The Heavy was killed! Oh god.
Up to this point, we, the audience, were the only ones who knew for certain that Heavy was killed. Everyone had only simply assumed that Heavy was killed, but none of them knew for certain, with the exception, of course, being Engie. It suddenly sinks in with the group. They're all in shock to have their worst fears realized. It's really something beautiful to see them all so sure that they know what happened, only to have the knowledge that they were right all along be the thing that they wanted least. It is after this that we are introduced to the Scout, who comes in and brings everybody back down to earth by calling attention to the situation at hand, trying his best to calm everyone down. He is then asked to leave and is escorted away by his mother. This may seem obvious, of course, but Scout represents the popular children's television show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, which had finished airing its final season only a month after the upload date of this short film. More importantly than the fact that Scout represents the popular children's television show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic, his story arc represents the concept of viral media as a whole, as the popular children's television show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic had, early on, been an example of viral media stirring up a very large fan base in a very short period of time. Everyone reacts very coldly to Scout's entrance, including Heavy, who specifically shakes his head at Scout, representing how even though viral media can stir up a large fanbase, the general public may not see value in it. Scout, as in the viral piece of media, tries to make people happy, calm them down, bring them back to reality. But instead the world just wants to see it move on. Scout's quick exit represents how no matter how big the viral media may get, its popularity will quickly fade away if it doesn't provide consistent value, much like the popular children's television show My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. This is where we are introduced to the Heavy, who is prodding at Heavy's body and reinforcing once again that Heavy is, in fact, dead. He's really insistent that he finds out how Heavy was killed. Heavy here represents the every person, and how people are so morbidly curious about public trials, wanting justice to be brought into the world when in reality they aren't even related to the victim in any way. Oh, also the medic dies to show how National Socialism is dead, no matter how much the edgelords who play Team Fortress 2 will tell you otherwise. This next bit is an example of a brilliant filmmaking technique, as the aspect of society that the Demo Man represents is entirely asserted not through actions or characterizations, but rather the directing itself. You'll notice that there are many close-ups of Demo, and through the directing alone you can clearly see that these close-ups are trying to present Demo as being provocative. Look how supple his lips are, how his stance emanates pure sexuality. You see, Demo represents lust and the effect that it has on people. Here you see Demo saying that he was the culprit, the one who caused the death of Heavy, and it may seem reasonable that he was, in fact, responsible. This shows how lust can seem debilitating until you look deeper and find that it's really societal issues that are the root cause of the pain and suffering, one's inner lust only serving as a distraction. After that, he demonstrates how he supposedly had killed Heavy using Sniper as a target, killing Sniper. Remember before when I said Sniper represents capitalism? This is showing how lust can cause people to make poor decisions which ultimately kill their financial situation, leaving them ultimately penniless. Demo proceeds to play this off as a joke and then begins to accuse Engie.
It was him.
Of course, we as the audience don't know it was Engie unless you've already seen the film, creating one of the strongest plot twists in film history, which is followed by Engie admitting to his crimes.
How did you know?
But after that, we get a complete reversal of expectations. See, we think that Demo knows exactly what happened. Maybe he saw it in the distance, or maybe he found out through all the arguing, but then Demo says that his accusation was a joke as well, after Engie had already admitted it. This is an incredible way to play with audience expectations, and it really adds a lot to the viewing experience, especially on rewatch, as it gives a whole new context to Demo's appearance. It is after this that Engie finally confesses to his crime properly, outright stating that it was him, letting it sink in with the audience.
That's right. It was me, you monster.
Heavy, distraught with this information, demands he know what caused Engie to fall to such a level as to commit murder. Engie responds that it's because Heavy is fat, going on to call him ugly and dumb and fat. This shows how society holds everyone to an unreasonable standard of beauty and intelligence that not everyone can attain, and as Heavy and Engie argue back and forth, we see the words on screen, "It's tradition." This battle, this war with societal conformity is so ingrained in society that it has since become tradition, and it is only by fighting against it that anything can be done to beat it. This is when Heavy has had enough, and actually defeats society at its own game, breaking the cycle and allowing himself to live. And this is finally where that thing I teased at the beginning comes to light. What if I told you that this entire time Heavy was never dead to begin with, but death, in the case of Heavy, represented something much deeper and more philosophical? Crazy, right? But true. You see, Heavy's death doesn't represent literal death, but rather societal death. Personal death, emotional death, depression. Society piles all these things on Heavy: expectations, societal norms, conformity, a lack of ability to freely express himself, which causes him to believe that he may as well be dead, because he may as well be dead to society. He spends this whole short film believing that he is worthless, that he means nothing because society willed it to be so, and it is only after fighting back, only after he defeats society that he can truly be alive, and be free to express himself as he once had earlier in the film. And this is the core message of the film. When societal standards force you into conformity, when you feel like you can't express yourself freely, and you feel depressed because the world is putting a ton of pressure on you, the only way to feel better is to be yourself and fight back against society. Force it to let you be who you are. So get out there and sing your song.